Welcome to another episode of Listomania, the Geek Show series that takes lists in a needlessly nerdy direction. So far we've had alien invasions in somewhere other than America, cult movie style video games, and Asian bands that defy all stereotypes. Before getting into it though, two things. First, apologies for it being so long between this video and the last one. Life has a nifty habit of getting in the way. And second, this is YouTube, so don't forget to like, subscribe and comment with your picks. Those interactions are especially important for us up and coming channels. This time on Listomania, rip-offs. We've all walked through a supermarket and seen every possible different animal version of Kung Fu Panda. All the rubbish that keeps the lights on at the asylum. That's not what we're talking about today though. Today we're talking about the rip-off movies that are actually pretty good. Some, fair enough, you're going to have to downgrade your expectations for, because they're not very good, I'm just being very kind to them. And the others are honest, legitimate classics. Not the Russian one from Film Twitter's second favourite Russian filmmaker. Please don't make me try and pronounce his name, please. It'll embarrass everybody. This is the 1980s one. Leviathan is one of those movies made in that weird little bubble of 1989-1990 aquatic horror. So alongside it you have Deep Star 6, Lords of the Deep, The Rift, The Abyss, and I feel like there's one more I'm forgetting too, whose name isn't really coming to mind. So even from the off we are talking about a deeply derivative wave of film. Dig a little deeper however, and we have plot beats which again are pretty familiar honestly. I wouldn't necessarily say the film was conceived as a rip-off, but through the glasses of time I'd definitely say it plays out like one. So what do we have here? We put Alien and The Thing, John Carpenter's, in a blender and then relocate it a mile under the ocean and you have George P. Cosmatos' Leviathan. He's the daddy of Panos, director of Mandy, who will go on record here and saying, not a fan. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. Leviathan is what we're talking about. So, if this was a low budget production ripping off those classics, it's a more commonly done thing. But no, it's not. It has Oscar winner Stan Winston on the special effects, and the cast plays out like a 1980s edition of That Guy from That Thing, including the likes of Peter Weller, Ernie Hudson, Rambo's boss, Home Alone guy, and Mr. I've Been in Everything. As for what makes it good, I am a sucker for alien thing appears and body horror nonsense happen movies. No matter where in the cosmos they take place, whether that is Life Force, The Blob, The Killer Clowns from Outer Space, even Alien Resurrection. Just to run through some of the great aspects of Leviathan though, we have Peter Weller as a geologist badass. Stan Winston's practical effects are obviously brilliant, and the monster is different every time it is on screen, so it never gets boring. Even though I say that, there is a production reason for that. Ernie Hudson's in it, he's great. And it also has the single worst killer one-liner in cinema history. So bad, it actually makes the movie kind of special. So bad, you'd think Arnold Schwarzenegger would have it in his collection of amazing one-liners in Commando. Sure, Leviathan is problematic on many levels, no bigger than the one where Weller's female boss gets punched in the face by Weller. But on many other different levels, it's a big, fun, big budget creature feature. I heard about terror on an American horror podcast, and it described this 1978 British shocker as the British Suspiria. And I haven't seen the film. I honestly shrugged it off as a playful way for them to sell to the horror faithful, and they do. It's shockwaves for those keeping score, so they represent the horror faithful. But no, honestly no. Terror features on an Indicator box set called Bloody Terror, the Shocking Cinema of Norman J. Warren, and hidden in the extras there's an interview in which Warren, bold as brass, states that he saw Suspiria and was inspired by how a horror film could be free from story and just include a series of horrific, well-shot events. I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember his exact words. Even so, he isn't exactly hiding the fact that he is cribbing from Argento. That becomes doubly true when the film starts. There is a overwhelming soundtrack, nonsense plotting, vivid colours, and witches. I say that from a place of love, by the way, and I also say from a place of love that this is the British Suspiria, only instead of it being the height of flamboyant Italian cinema, this is full of prime English cheese grommet. So, a lovely bit of Wensleydale. So, where Suspiria was set up in an Italian dance studio, complete with witches and bizarre rooms where they're kept all the barbed wire, terror is set in the British TV and film industry. One scene is a softcore production called Bath Time for Babs. I'll say that again, just so it can sink in. Bath Time with Babs. Now, if that isn't the single most British thing you've heard this week, you must have heard something really top drawer, and you have to share it. And I'll be honest, that's all terror really needs to feature on this list. Flying cars. Yes, it has flying cars in the third act, which is wonderful, and like he goes back to his Argento inspiration, not explained in the slightest. And Bath Time with Babs. So obviously the line in which these films have to clear for me to call them good is pretty low. This is just a fun, nutty movie. A flying car though. Suspiria wishes it was this cool. Also, FYI, I'm more of an Inferno man than a Suspiria man. The Flying Guillotine is one of the weirder left turns from the Shaw brothers in their martial arts films. Their horror is a trip, to say the least, but I can guarantee you right now those movies are going to pop up again later in this series. Flying Guillotine, 1975. A great film in which a group of people are trained to use a flying hood that was thrown at a person and then whoosh pop, you've lost your head, son. One of the people gets feelings, not wanting to be used as a political executioner. Political, yeah, sure, I understand, but executing people is pretty much all you can do with that terrifying contraption. It's not like it can be rented out to kids' parties, is it? So, there's also a sequel anyway, in 1977. Master of the Flying Guillotine isn't that sequel. Weirdly, the Master of the Flying Guillotine is credited as being part of the One-Armed Boxer series, which again, it isn't really. The One-Armed Boxer is there, sure, but he is such an afterthought with all the other awesome stuff going on. So this is more like a Zatoichi versus movie or a Godzilla versus movie when you consider all the sagas that are at play here. Which is to say, he is there, but it most certainly isn't that character's movie. This is more of a project for Wang Yu, the director, than Wang Yu, the actor. That does make a lot of sense, what I just said. But let's just say this. This era of Hong Kong cinema is about as easy to explain as the X-Men continuity. Has as many spin-offs too. Anyway, Master of the Flying Guillotine is badass. First up, music. Typical Shaw Brothers movies are scored with traditional Chinese music, which is gorgeous, for sure, but after a while it tends to merge into one indistinguishable, beautiful sound. A Shaw Brothers movie sounds like a Shaw Brothers movie. They're all the same thing. Good thing, but the same thing. Master of the Flying Guillotine isn't a Shaw Brothers movie. It was shot in Taiwan and produced in Taiwan, so it's kind of separate, and features German krautrock pioneers. Now, the big bad doesn't necessarily need to do much, but every time he appears, together with that score, he sounds like the most threatening presence imaginable for this style of cinema. Of course, the music was used without proper license or proper attention paid to copyright law, but that's how it was in those days. I guess. Also, there's a character who has the same stretchy arms fighting technique that Dalsim from Street Fighter has. This sure is about as fun as things get, honestly. Rip-off status. Be damned. This list could be made exclusively of Jaws rip-offs. Actually, make that 2. One based on sharks, and one based on other animals. Just to run through a favourite for you anyway. Alligator, Joe Dante's Piranha, Lake Placid. Loads of these things borrow liberally and really obviously from Jaws. The one I'm going to highlight, though, is from William Girdler, a young director who died way too young when his helicopter crashed when scouting locations for his next film in the Philippines. He left behind Abby, or Blaxorcist, to borrow the terms used for Blackenstein and Blackula, blaxploitation movie Sheba Baby, and old Native American shaman in my armpit movie, The Manitou. This guy was the epitome of 1970s exploitation movies. His stuff just has that good feeling, you know. Also, I've got a shout out here to Knoxville Horror Film Festival in 2019 when this has been recorded, for putting on their Girdler-thon thing, which is a tongue twister, I should say. That'd be a very cool triple bill. Anywho, for this list, he also directed Grizzly, about a big old grizzly bear. It's about a giant bear, 18-footer, who is swatting people to death in the mountains. Behaving like a slasher bad guy, actually, killing people who are having relations and whatnot, and teenagers who are about to get down to business. But anyway, I'm all in for movies like this. So, movies that intersperse archival footage with shots of limbs being swatted away by the big boy of the title. Animal attacks movies don't really get made anymore, and I entirely understand why. Still, I miss these messy movies. Interesting though, it does one thing that horror films don't really have the cojones to do all that often. It has the bear killer kid. You know, a killer grizzly is meaning business and he's down to some serious stuff when he goes out for little ones. Not even demons or aliens go that far, so this is a serious bear. For some reason I keep writing this one down as Zombie Flesh Eater, which I don't know what that is, to be honest. Night of the Living Dead, though, is probably one of the top 5 most influential horror movies of all time. Its sequel isn't far behind it either. In Italy, Dawn of the Dead was called Zombie, no E, just Z-O-M-B-I. In Italy, Zombie Flesh Eaters is called Zombie 2. Don't really need to draw the lines together here. Not only that, Zombie became a long-running series on its own, which, apparently, according to a very quick Wikipedia search, has 14 films that dot between Britain, Germany, America, Italy and Thailand, with the most recent being Zombie 14, Mushroom Zombies, aka Matango. Classy. Heading back to the 1970s with Lucio Fulci's Flesh Eaters, although the film was conceived as a way to muscle in on all those sweet Romero dollars, it is also a fantastically inventive and fun movie. It gave the world zombie versus shark, one of the few bits of gore that I'm unable to keep my eyes open for. Hint in the wording, this is just a feast for the gorehound with iconic scenes littered throughout. Most significantly for me, however, is the fact that Fulci reinstated voodoo in the mythology of the zombies. I wish it was more widespread than just Fulci, and it was more common, but woulda, shoulda, coulda. Who knows what the future holds for the zombie. For everybody else and for Zombie Flesh Eaters though, the one thing Fulci was always a boss at, he knew how to shoot a film like few others in his world could. For Zombie Flesh Eaters and Lucio Fulci as a whole, really, let's just call him a director of beautiful sleaze. We are heading way back to the origins of horror now, with Nosferatu. Murnau's hugely iconic feature was instrumental in inventing the cinematic language of the vampire, inventing horror as a genre in cinema actually, and a key text in making the vampire one of the key centerpieces of cheap Halloween costumes for decades to come. Back in 1922, it was denied release as it was an unauthorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's classic novel. It didn't see release in America until 1929, 7 years after its German premiere. They changed key names, but still, it just wasn't meant to be. Luckily, the Stokers relented and allowed what is probably the single most important horror film of all time to be. It cannot be overstated. There will be few horror films that you've ever seen where some trope or shot can't be traced back to Murnau in the 20s. The DNA spreads that far and that wide. In particular, the shot of him stalking his way up the stairs. I do love a good spooky stairs shot, and this is up there with Kill Baby Kill, The Changeling, and The Haunting, only 1000% more important and iconic. Calling it one of the most influential horror movies of all time is a given. I can only word that so many ways, so many times. That being said, it has become difficult to recommend to new eyes. Sure, if you are interested in horror history, watch this now. If not, it's not so easy. I'm not going to say something as monumentally moronic as saying it is dated. I mean, of course it has. It's 3 years shy of 100-year-old. What I will say, though, is cinema has changed so much in the preceding century that it barely has anything in common with modern cinema, beyond the most rudimentary of tricks and tools. Still, modern cinema wouldn't be what it is without this. And I'm probably going to hell for saying this cheap rip-off. Ugh, I felt dirty typing that, and never mind saying it. But I'll loop round by saying, as far as horror movie atmosphere goes, Nosferatu is one of the most, I don't know how to describe it, it's just one of the most impressive atmospheres in a horror movie that I've ever seen. That's Nosferatu from almost 100 years ago. So there we have it, curtain drawn on another episode of Listomania. It won't take anywhere near as long putting the next list together, I guarantee that. Like I said at the head of the video, comment below if you have any thoughts on what I've said, or any additions of your own, or if you have any ideas for future videos in the series, please. I'd love to hear from you. But while you're here on the Geek Show, please do check out some other stuff, whether it's reviews or the Press X video game blog series. Until next time though, thanks for watching, and remember, there's no such thing as too nerdy.